Gentleman, Mr. Loebsack, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks to both of you for being here today. Appreciate your service, obviously. I have to begin by saying that I was deeply disappointed when I read in the Washington Post that those headstones from Arlington were found in a riverbed on the cemetery's grounds, as well as the Patuxent Research Refuge. And when I saw the photo that accompanied the Washington Post article, and this is the photo, I guess I was particularly upset that there was a name on one of these headstones, and it happened to be George Beer, a World War I veteran from Iowa. That particularly hit home, obviously. I'm a representative from Iowa, as you might imagine. It hit me hard, and I was quite dismayed. And again, there doesn't seem to be any explanation for how that headstone came to be there. I guess that's even more upsetting. And I know that, Mr. Secretary, you tried to answer to some extent the question about the current status of the headstones that were found there, and so what the policy is with respect to headstones that are replaced or whatever the case may be. Could you elaborate a little bit more on that? I know you were answering that question when Congressman Conaway brought that issue up. What happens to those headstones?
Just so I'm clear, Congressman, the headstones...
What's the normal procedure for the headstones that are replaced? Right, exactly.
When we replace a headstone, it's been this way since 1994, and to this point, we're not aware of any divergence from that policy. But what happens now is a replaced headstone is broken into and ground so that in the case that you cited where there are discernible markings, they're no longer discernible, and they're disposed of. They're not reutilized. They're disposed of in an appropriate manner.
And is it the case that we don't know yet why these headstones ended up where they are? We don't know that at this point.
It seems obvious that this was an accepted practice, as I mentioned, throughout all government agencies, or through many government agencies that indeed had cemetery operations and encountered excess headstones. As I said to Congressman Conaway, I can't justify that. It was apparently acceptable policy. I find it hard how anyone could develop that as acceptable policy. I find it rather abhorrent, but it was accepted policy. So what we are encountering is that these headstones were used in a variety of ways as building materials, and it's distasteful. We don't do it any longer, and we're making every step, most importantly, to extract those headstones from the stream. We have a way forward with the Department of Interior. In fact, we have a meeting coming up, I believe it's today, actually, on June 30, to talk about the appropriate environmental way forward. These are in streams and stream beds, and we don't want to, cause an environmental catastrophe or an environmental challenge, and B, they do in part hold up the stream bed, which validates the integrity of the cemetery land. So we want to make sure, both from an engineering and environmental perspective, we're going ahead, but we're going to take all of those stones and, according to current policy, grind them up and dispose of them in a respectful way.
Two more quick points, if I might, and I think both of you can agree with this. It's been quite some time, and we've been pretty successful in this country at sort of bringing America around to appreciating our soldiers, our airmen, our sailors, our Coast Guard folks. After Vietnam, Vietnam was a low point, as everyone in this room knows, sort of how the American public looked at our military and to some extent our troops as well, and didn't really appreciate them very much, I think, as a result of Vietnam. And we've been kind of making a long, slow comeback, I think, on that front since that time. And I'm very concerned, obviously, that what we've seen happen with these headstones, it's a real problem, obviously. It doesn't reflect well, I think, and I think a lot of the American people are going to have a lot of concerns, obviously, about this, and they already do. And I look forward to working with both of you to the extent to which we can do that, as members of Congress to remedy the situation, provide whatever resources we need to provide as well to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And one final comment about the Guard and Reserve. Please do look at that report from the Reserve Officers Association. We have 2,900 Iowa National Guard members who are going to be deployed to Afghanistan. And I think it's important that we not tolerate any distinction between what happens with folks who have served active duty versus those who have been in the Reserve or the Guard. So I appreciate your taking a look at that and look forward to continuing to work with you on that front as well.
We'll certainly look at that, Congressman. I appreciate your help. And again, there's no justification for what happened.
Right.
And my son is one of those Iowans, sir.
Good for you. Thank you. And I probably met him when I was at Camp Ripley recently. Thanks a lot. And I yield back. Thank you.